Okay, this is lesson 5.10, which is writing real-world inequalities. And just to give you an idea, we've already done this lesson back in 5.4, but we're just wrapping back around to understand it a little bit more now. So I have two tips for you, especially when dealing with multiple choice questions. And the first tip is write your own inequalities with the variable on the left. And notice I said write your own inequalities because you should trust yourself. Your math is good. You know how to do it. So just trust yourself and then the answer choices will come. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and cover this up. In order for a canal to be navigated by a steamboat, the canal's depth must follow the inequality. 13 is less than D. Which statement best describes the required depth? So first I'm going to switch this around. D and 13. Notice that this is pointing at the 13. So this is D is greater than 13. Okay? I'm going to write one for each of these. At least 13 feet deep, more, less, equal. If it's at least 13, that means that it's 13 or more. Does that match that? No. Cross it off. More than 13 feet deep. More than is just more than. Is that that? Yeah. So the answer actually is B. Number 2, in order for the same question, just different inequality. So I'm going to switch it around. This is pointing at the 13, so I'm still going to have it point at the 13. Which statement best describes it? Again, at least 13 feet deep. At least means it can equal or it's more than. Is that that? Yeah, it is. So these problems can be that easy. You just need to trust your own math. Next two are a little bit different. The number of penguins on the outer edge, C, required to shield the penguins on the inside, N, follows the inequality. 3C is greater than or equal to N plus 14. If there are 10 penguins on the outer edge, which statement best describes the penguins on the inside? So I need to go back and figure out outer edge is what variable? The penguins on the outer edge, C. So C equals 10. Take 10 and substitute it in. I look at my answer choices, I see that they're actually numbers, so I'm going to isolate it. Go ahead and subtract 14 on both sides. The 16 is greater than or equal to N. I'm going to flip this around. This is pointing at the end, so it's still going to point at the end. N is less than or equal to 16. So now I need to read these and figure it out. At least is greater than or equal to. Does that match that? No. More than is just more than. Does that match that? No. Less than. Does that match that? No. Last one, at most. If it's at most, that means that that's the top value. So it's got to be less than or equal to that amount. Does that match that? Yes. The answer is at most 16 penguins on the inside. Last one. GM sells cars. In order to stay profitable, GM must produce a number of cars in Mexico and a number of cars in Canada, according to the inequality shown. For GM to make 4,000 cars in Mexico, how many cars should it produce in Canada? 4,000 cars in Mexico. I need to double check my variables. Cars in Mexico. Number of cars in Mexico. So that's M. I'll go ahead and substitute that in. 2 times 4,000 minus 7,000 less than or equal to C. That's 8,000 minus 7,000 less than or equal to C. That's 1,000 less than or equal to C. Flip it around. This is pointing at the 1,000, so it's still going to point. C is greater than or equal to 1,000. If you have more than 1,000 cars, that's more than. Does that match that? No. At least 1,000 cars. At least 1,000 cars. At least is greater than or equal to 1,000. Does that match that? Yeah. So the correct answer is B. Okay, so moving on to tip number 2. First of all, before I start, I have 3 typos in the first problem and 1 typo in the second one. So hit pause and edit that. Now we need to go ahead and we need to still write your own inequalities. In other words, trust yourself. Then rewrite the answer choices. Okay, so I'm going to model this by covering this up. If the number of pepperoni slices can be at most 5 more than half the number of mushrooms on the pizza, which inequality could be used? Okay, so at most, I'm going to deal with that first. At most, so if it's at most means it can be it or less. So less than or equal to. Reread it. If the number of pepperoni slices can be at most, pepperoni less than or equal to 5 more at the end than half the number of mushrooms. Okay, I've got this, and what I'm going to focus on is just this part to see if I can cancel some things out. This sign has an equal to sign, so I'm going to cross anything off that doesn't have that. This doesn't have an equal to sign. This is good. This is good. This does not have an equal to sign, so I'll cross these 2 out. Now I have P is greater than this stuff. And if I look at this, this says P is greater. I wrote P is less, so I don't think that's it. But this one looks weird. I'll rewrite this with the P on the left and the 1/2 M plus 5 on the right. This is pointing at the P, and as you see, they are the same. I wrote it and then look for my answer choice. Last one. A city ordinance states that a mural's area cannot be more than half the wall's area. If the wall's 200 feet, all right, we'll come back to that. Cannot be more than. Cannot be more than. So it can be it, but it cannot be more, so it has to be less. Okay? So the mural's area, M, cannot be more than half the wall's area. All right. The wall's area is 200 feet. Okay, I'll go ahead and substitute that in. All right, I have mine. Now I'm going to look for the one that matches. First, start with this. I need an equal to sign, so these 2 are out. Now it says M is less than or equal to. This says M is greater than or equal to, so that's out. M is less than or equal to 1/2 times 2,000, and that's the correct answer.